I'm super excited today to share some reading curriculum with you guys. I have taught 3 of my kiddos how to read. For 2 of them, it was really a breeze. They picked it up easily on their own, a little bit of practice, and they took off. For one of them, reading has been a lot more of a challenge, and she has had to work very hard to learn how to read. As a homeschooling parent, I feel like I also have faced a lot of challenges in trying to help her in the best way that I can. So in this video, I want to share with you guys some resources that we've used, things that I've used for my readers that kind of just took off on their own. But then a lot of this video is going to be focused on our journey as I was helping my struggling reader. We are still on that journey. I wouldn't say that all of my kids are, the most fluent readers right now. So there are still things that we're working on, but I'm kind of just meeting you guys where we're at and letting you know how that's going. I know when you're a homeschooling parent and you really want to help your child, you want to do anything you can. You're looking for all the best resources out there. And I'm not saying that what I used is the best. I really am just making my choices based on my own personal research. So please don't take this as I think this is going to work for you, or this is the right decision to make. This is more of, hey, here's our experience. I hope it helps you as you make decisions for your family. My name's Jamie. This is Simply Learning Together, where I like to share all things homeschool, whether it's things that we're experiencing or curriculum that we're using. I'm so happy that you guys are here. I am a mom of 4. We have been homeschooling this is our 7th year, and my kids are 11, 9, 6, and almost 5. When I started homeschooling, my oldest was starting kindergarten. So I guess you could say we've been doing it from the beginning. I just didn't do preschool for my oldest 2. I was teaching in the classroom. It was definitely a transition going from a classroom teacher to then homeschool teacher because they're very different worlds. But with my oldest, by the time I got to homeschooling her, she kind of already knew her letters and she was already starting to blend. So I did not buy a reading curriculum for her. I may have bought a language arts. I didn't like it at the time. I'm pretty sure it was The Good and the Beautiful, but it was before they changed it. It was their old one. So she got a little bit of phonics practice in there, but most of our reading came from books that we got from the library. I had Bob books at home. There is a series, an old series, and see if you can find it at your library, but it's called Dear Dragon. And I used to get those books. There's 20 to 30 books. I used to come home with 5 or 6 and I'd have her read one, and they're just full of sight words and repetitive reading. The pictures are cute, and she would read one to me, and then a couple days later she'd read it again, and then another day or 2 later she'd read it again. And so she was just kind of practicing and building her fluency, and that's really all I did for her, and it was great. It felt really laid back. After several months of doing stuff like that and just consistently working through it, she did awesome. We also worked through things like Explode the Code, which isn't my favorite. I don't really use it anymore, but we did use it at the time. So she was getting phonics through that. And then, like I said, a little bit from The Good and the Beautiful when we were using it. So that's kind of her experience. When I went to go and teach my second daughter, I was like, oh yeah, teaching reading. We are just so laid back. We're just a gentle approach. We don't do curricula. And then I went to teach her and was just like totally blown away. It was a completely different child. And that's one of the things that I'm so grateful for in our homeschooling experience, is really getting to see my children grow so uniquely. They are all so extremely different, and things that I do for one does not work the same as I do for the other. And so that's kind of been a journey in itself. But yeah, I started realizing that right from the beginning, this journey was going to be different. I didn't mention this earlier, but from early on, I thought maybe dyslexia was a part of her picture, and I was very unfamiliar with that, to be honest. I did not do any testing, but I did a lot of research, and the more and more I researched, the more I felt like that's kind of what we were working with. Some of the things that I learned in that research is you really can't jump on that too soon. Now that she is older, I can almost pretty confidently say that that she is dyslexic. And So I feel like in all of her learning processes, it's just going to be a little different for her. She's going to face different challenges than somebody that does not have a dyslexic brain. I'm kind of getting off track, but there's a point to this. I really want this to resonate with certain moms. And I don't mean to call you out, but I know why you're here. When you're teaching your child to read and it's not working, and things aren't going the way that you thought it was, you kind of feel lost and you're wondering, is it you? And then the next step in that process is trying to figure out how to fix it. And you want to do the best that you can, and you work really hard and you challenge yourself, and I see you, I feel you on that. And then I feel like the next phase in that process is a feeling of loneliness. And that is something that I experienced early on when things got really tough. I don't know if other moms feel this too, but when you're working your butt off to help your child and to succeed in the best way that they can, because you know their potential and what wonderful humans they are, when it doesn't work, it feels a little lonely, because I think you wonder, is anybody else feeling this much of a challenge as I am? And there were so many times where I would approach other homeschool moms and share my experience, and the response, there was never a relatable response. I don't know if they just weren't as worried as me. Am I a worrywart? Or if they were experiencing something completely different. I feel like a lot of people will say, just give it time. Children have their own journey. They'll say things like, just wait, be patient, and it'll suddenly just click. I've heard that so many times. We've never experienced that click. Instead, her and I, and especially her, have worked super hard to make progress. So if that's you, if you're in this boat feeling that, I'm here to tell you you're not alone. I just encourage you to keep believing in your child, keep believing in yourself, in helping them. Homeschooling is such a blessing in this sense, because we really get to work one-on-one and give them exactly what they need. So that's a little bit of my heart. So let's kind of jump in on that. In me trying to figure out how to help her best, we had a lot of resources, and that's kind of what I'm going to get down to today, in showing you all these things that helped her, things that we liked and things that we didn't like. Starting at the beginning, I saw signs that it was gonna be different when she was in preschool, when we were practicing letters, maybe through puzzles or any type of letter activity. They weren't sticking, just not able to recognize them, and me being like, this is so crazy. I mean, we've seen the letter D 1,000,000 times, like this is D. So that was kind of like the first sign that it was going to be a little different. And then the same kind of thing with sounds, teaching a sound, but that lesson not really sticking. In order to help her with that, I actually developed an alphabet workbook for her, because I just wanted her to repetitively practice the alphabet in a consistent manner. And I hadn't seen anything like that online. So I made these little alphabet worksheets, and I can link it down here. It'll be called Alphabet Workbook. But basically it was a letter a week, and it was 4 different practice sheets, and they were all different. So a lot of variety, a lot of different ways to practice letters. And so that kind of gave us some consistent practice when starting with letters. I know people will say, learn letters and sounds simultaneously, or learn them separately, or learn one first. You know what, guys? In that moment, I had 4 kids, a 2-year-old and an infant and a struggling reader and first grader. And I was literally just like, I don't care what the right thing is. I'm just trying to get day to day, okay? So if you've done a certain research and you feel a certain way, then do that. Remember, this video is just sharing our experience. So then after learning letters, I moved on to trying to teach the sounds in an explicit way. So the tool that I used was this ABC See Hear Do. I love this book. I probably have a video on here talking about it. I'll link it. But it basically has a letter. I know it's backwards, but it's a letter in emotion. So for this one, you say hippopotamus, and there, so you have lots of senses being used here. And then once they teach you certain sounds, then you blend them together with these pages, and they have these little picture cues for them. And so then you can practice blending these sounds together. Her kindergarten year, we spent about 6 weeks working through this, just doing a few pages at a time, over and over again, repeating and practicing. And it was a challenge. I remember getting to the end and being like, we did it. It was just a way to have consistency and practice things in a fun way. Could I have done a curriculum like all about reading or something like that? I could have. Number one, I probably didn't have the money at the time. And number two, I was still in this mode of, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And so I was just kind of going with inexpensive things. And can we, like, spoiler alert, it is fine. We are fine. But it was just a journey for me as well, learning how to teach this child. Something I want to point out, I have another child that I handed this book to, and she went through the whole thing in 13 minutes. It's just proof to you. Every child has to take their own path to their success. I also want to mention that we use Bob books at this point. I had bought a set or two and was just trying to work with them in the same way I mentioned those Dear Dragon books, just reading one, reading it again, and once again, I was experiencing that same thing that I was with the letters, where I felt like we were reading it, but then it was forgotten, you know, and then the word "the" would be on a page, and then 2 pages later, there it was again, and it was like we had never seen it before. So that was just kind of confusing point for me, like, what is happening? And so that's probably when I really started to jump into this research of trying to help my child read the best that she can. By the time we approached first grade, I was kind of in a mindset of, I need more guidance. I need more help. The kind of go with the flow approach that I was doing wasn't working at this point. And it was honestly lowering my confidence, making me feel a little insecure. So I wanted to make sure that I was taking the right steps to help her in the best way possible, which is when I chose a reading curriculum. And I chose one specifically for helping children that are maybe struggling to read. I went between 2 choices. I looked at All About Reading and I looked at Logic of English. Ultimately, I went with Logic of English, and the reason is because I felt like it was less prep. I just did not like the idea of having to cut and paste and get things all ready to go, all the moving parts, and then trying to save it for other kids if I needed it. I didn't like that. They're both similar in cost, but that was kind of a turnoff for me. I know there are ways to kind of make that easier, but that just wasn't an interest of mine. So I went with Logic of English. I loved it. I think I have a review of this on my blog, so I can link that to you. But we worked through all of Foundations A. So it comes with a book for the parent, you know, with a script and everything. And then it also has a workbook for the child. And I think this is for the level B. But both of these things were super helpful. And the reason I loved it so much is because even though every lesson was challenging, I knew that I was taking the steps to help her in the best way that she needed. Even on their website, it was mentioning things that it might help with children with dyslexia. It follows that Orton-Gillingham, if you've ever heard those words before. So it also had handwriting, so it covered that. This was very helpful. I loved it when we used it. I loved that the games were take your letter flashcards that you already have and do this activity with them. or go grab your Legos and do the following. So everything was just kind of like grab and go. I never had to like cut and paste or laminate or do anything like that. And that's what I really loved about Logic of English. It is very kind of memorize-y. Is that a word? You know, so when the further you get into it, you start to have to memorize rules. And at the moment, I was like, this is, what are we doing? But, you know, just yesterday, she quoted a rule from Logic of English. So, I mean, obviously, it helped. The other thing I loved from Logic of English was this book, and you might even be able to buy this separately, but it takes the letter, it tells you all the sounds of the letter. I know it's backwards. This is an A, and the sounds are a, ah, and that's how they learn the letters. Immediately, they learn every single sound the letter makes. So instead of, you know, A says ah, no, A says ah, a, ah. And so that was hard for me to grasp, but I learned so much, and I know all the letter sounds now. But I love this book because it'll say, you know, it'll show you examples of the sound. So this is G, G, J, and then over here it says green giants. And so you can see examples of that. And I've hung on to this because I think it'll be helpful for my other little ones. So we loved Logic of English. We worked all the way through A. We worked through B. When we got about 3/4 of the way through B, I felt like we hit a wall. I don't know how to describe it. It was almost like a boredom wall. We were just like needing to spice it up. And it got a lot more rule heavy. And we still weren't blending and reading very well. So this was moving forward, but we weren't quite there yet. And there was, and after working through it for like 1.5 years we spent on foundations A and B, it was kind of like, I just feel like we need to mix it up. So we did. We changed from that point. And I've held on to this because I think I may be using it. I did try it with my third child, and she was beyond that. This is the child that flew through this one. She was just like, this is too in-depth for me. Give me a book and I will read it to you. So that was her personality. And so something like this just didn't work for her. I feel like if I would have done this for her, she would have hated reading. So, you know, I had to make that call, but I'm still hanging on to it for my son, who is also showing similar signs of letter recognition and stuff like that. So I feel prepared and ready, like the Lord has really grown me. And so anyway, that's another story. But, you know, I feel like this could be a good fit for him. We finished Logic of English, we said we were going to stop. And I was kind of in this, I don't know what to do next. So I kind of went online and found YouTube videos. I'm telling you, these when you hear other people's experience, it can be helpful. I found a video that mentioned this reading pathways, and these books I have look-throughs on my account of these, so I know this is backwards, but I'll link you to those. They have these pyramids, and these pyramids are repetitive to help with fluency. So for example, it'll look like this: Ruth and Dave. Ruth and Dave teach. Ruth and Dave teach Mike. And it goes on and on until you get this big full sentence down here. The pages leading up to it help you practice all of those sounds, and it's very helps you blend the sounds together. Okay, so this was really cool to start using, and I basically just sat down with her every day and did some of these pyramids and worked through some of these sounds, and I loved it. It was just simple and it was quick, and the foundations lessons were much longer, so I kind of felt like a quick lesson was something that we needed at that moment. When I looked into this, I found out that there was also a book called Phonics Pathways, written by the same person. And this was an amazing resource. There is so much stuff in the beginning to teach you about what this is and how to use it. It is a lot of reading, but it's helpful. It really breaks down all the things that you can do, everything that she includes, all the steps that you need to take, because it's not built like, you know, a textbook like this where it says first do this, then do this, then do this, okay? This is more like I'm going to explain you this process. So you really have to do your reading. And then it goes through the letter sounds in here, and then it'll start going through like digraphs. Okay, so this is SH. And then, so basically any letter sound that you think of is in here. I was using the combination of this and this, and I'm not gonna like go into detail about it. I have videos on that, but the two of these together were a really good fit for a while, and I learned so much too. And I hung on to this because there are times when I'm like, I cannot get this one letter combination to stick. And so I'll look in here and find the page and practice. And you know, here's word examples. Here it is. The author will give you like some helpful tips in teaching it. So I will use this. This has become just like a reference for me in a lot of things that we do. And once again, this is just a helpful tool too. So I love having these things on my shelf. I don't think that I could let them go at this point. After working through these for about, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 months, that's kind of a guess. This was a couple years ago. I kind of got that insecure feeling again. This was probably our hardest year. Because in my mind, I felt like she should be somewhere in her skill level, and it wasn't meeting my expectations. And I think that's a fault on me, personally. And that's been something that I've had to grow in. So I was experiencing some low points. Looking back, I wish I could have told myself to chill, you know, but you can't. So I felt like, okay, once again, I'm in the position where I want something to really guide me, to kind of have consistency, and where I'm not in charge, right? Because yes, these are here, but it was kind of my own put together thing. So I did, until I could find something, I found this other helpful resource called Treasure Hunt Reading. That was a workbook you could buy on Amazon. I think at the time it was like $11. I don't know if it's that cheap anymore, but it was a workbook. And then online, this lady, she's called Adventure Kate. She does these videos. They're free online. I will link you the website. And she teaches the children the sounds of the letters. And she has these little stories and these little motions to help remember. And I snatched that up so fast because it was a minute for me to step back and let another face, the online Adventure Kate, kind of take over while I could kind of figure out, I mean, I was sitting right there, but I'm learning from Adventure Kate also. And it would kind of gave me like a mental rewind, a mental refresh. What do I need to do next? So as we were consistently working through Treasure Hunt Reading, that's kind of where my brain was at. It's really cute. It's super good practice. Can I be honest though and say, I think I would prefer it as like if you wanted to do review in the summer, maybe? Because eventually it got to the point where it was like, we're doing the same thing again. And then she has an activity in there where they draw comics, and that just didn't interest my child, because then there was writing, and she hates writing, where you had to write the speech bubbles. So it was kind of it just wasn't a good fit for her. Using that plus this, then I thought, this isn't gonna do it. So that's when I dove deep into some more resources. Once again, I came here on YouTube and found a program that I had never heard of before. And there was like 2 videos on YouTube about it. But both parents that shared it raved about it, saying that it boosted their confidence and was just so amazing. And so I decided to go with it because at the time it was going to cost me like $75 to kick it off. And cost is important to me. Like, I can't just afford to just buy curriculum at any time. So cost plays a big role. And so that's what I did. This program was called ABECEDARIAN. I don't think it's called that anymore. I think it's called Sharpen Reading. I think they changed names like right after I used it. But I have an entire look-through video of this program, and it is in-depth and long. You will see exactly how it goes. But oh my goodness, this was something else. It was so different from like Logic of English. It was phonics based, right? So you were learning all the sounds and everything, but it just approached it in such a different way. So go and watch that video if you want to see what it is. We worked through, this is B1. They have an A, and I felt like we didn't need A. We were at B. And I loved it because there was a script. It told me exactly what to say, and every day was a little bit different. And my goodness, you guys, I learned so many strategies when it comes to like seeing a word, decoding it, spelling strategies, like when you're learning to spell a word, just reading through all of his stuff, which once again is really a lot of reading. I mean, I read through so much, and then as I was doing the lessons, it was so educational to me in helping my child. And he has videos, or he did. I don't know if they're, I have to see if they're still around, but he had videos of using this with other children. And so watching him teach them was so educational. Like his demeanor and the way that he talked to them, and the way that he like rewarded them with his words, and then how he would approach a certain activity. Wow, it was so interesting to watch. And so that helped me too. So we worked all the way through this one, and it really helped. I mean, I feel like we made the most progress with this book. She was probably 8 at the time. So is it coincidence? I don't know at that age, but man, we made leaps and bounds with this. And the way that he approaches reading too, it comes with like a little reader. The first time she read a reader, I cried. I cried like a baby. I was so proud of her because, you know, it was a journey. And a lot of times, you know, looking at a paragraph would be overwhelming. And in this case, it was like, boom, she just read it. And I'm sitting there like, oh my gosh, you're amazing. Okay, so this was really, really great. And as you can see, I still have this. I'm hanging on to it. I don't have the student workbook anymore, but go watch that video and check it out and see. You know, it's a thorough reading program, and it's about half the price of All About Reading or Logic of English. They even have like some online stuff too. I don't know. It's changed since I used it, and that wasn't that long ago. So Sharpen Reading is what it's called now. I'll link this video and I'll link their website. Okay, we're moving on. After we finished this, I felt like we were at a good point to, I wanted more of a full comprehensive language arts with her. I just felt like we spent so many years reading, practicing reading, that it was like, let's kind of bring in the other good stuff, right? I make my own language arts with my daughter, but in my experience with this child, I prefer guidance from a curriculum, scripted things, because it boosts my confidence that I'm doing everything I can to help my child. So for her path last year, this would have been her 3rd grade year, I bought The Good and the Beautiful, which is funny because I mentioned I used it with my oldest child years ago and hated it. I thought it was terrible. But their new stuff seemed a lot different. My daughter loved it. She's very creative. She loves pictures. She loves art. It was a really good fit for her. I did that, and I did their placement test and bought her the 1st grade book, and her age level would have put her at 3rd grade. So I think that's something to consider if you're thinking about The Good and the Beautiful. It moves fast, and I would say it's kind of advanced. And also, if you're going to put your child, if your child is struggling to read and you just put them at grade level, they're going to drown. So it was really helpful that I did the placement test. And I, of course, as a mother, you kind of have a feeling like, oh my gosh, is this the right thing? But it was really helpful. Looking back on that year, that was the right decision. Even though some pages were super easy for her, anything beyond that, I just think would have been frustration. And I've learned that, like, especially if your child is struggling to read, you don't want to be butting heads about the subject. Like, you want to be enjoying the process and working together. And so that was a really good change. And it was also nice because it wasn't just like reading, phonics. It was more, we're looking at a lot of stuff. And I think that year, that 1st grade level has like some geography in it. And so it was really a good break from what we were doing. One of the things that the new Good and the Beautiful Language Arts, I say new, but I want to say it was like new 3 or 4 years ago. They do these things called reader booster cards. I love these because it's almost like this in miniature form. Here's what I mean. Okay, I know this is backwards, y'all, but you'll get the point. So you get a page, right? And it'll tell you a sound. So at the top it says OR can say and then it gives you the words to practice, and then she even gives you like ways that you can practice that. I don't really always do that. We kind of just practice. But the point is, you're supposed to read these words again and again until they're read with confidence. And then they have these little spaces here that you can sticker. They also have an app. So if you're comfortable with using the iPad, it's very like low key, but it's free. And you can practice the specific sounds, which is awesome. Sometimes I'll use it like as a reward at the end of the week, go practicing the different cards we did that week. But if you look at the back, look at this. Look familiar? These are those pyramids again. So it's those fluency things. So like I said, it was like a mini version of these, and I loved them. So this really became our focus when we started with The Good and the Beautiful. And at the time, my 3rd child was in kindergarten, and I decided to solely use these for teaching her how to read. I mentioned it when I talked about logic of English. I tried that, and so I said, forget that. We're going to take it simple. And we started with the B cards with her and worked our way through it. And now she's on these C cards. The C cards come with like a cute little chapter book. And so it comes with readers, but check these out. These are great for practice. That from The Good and the Beautiful, that was kind of the positive that I got from it was these booster cards. I just love them, and we're still using them today. My 2nd and my 3rd daughter together are working through this reading booster C, and then we're reading through this chapter book. So that's kind of our phonics reading practice, and it's real short, quick, and easy. And I just set a goal to do it 2 or 3 times a week, and that's it. So definitely look into those. I don't think I've done like a look through of these. I only have B and C, but if you're interested in that, leave a comment and let me know. Okay, so we are now at the point of like current day, things that we're doing right now. As you can see, it's been a journey. I did not always know the answer. I tried multiple things. Some of them worked great, some of them not so much. Most of them, I learned just so much about teaching reading. So even though I look back and think, whew, this was a challenge, I am so thankful for how I've grown in the process. And I feel like it's made teaching reading to my younger two a different experience. I haven't even started with my youngest son, but I think it's allowed me to relax a little bit with him. You know, whereas my 2nd daughter, I was kind of starting to push letters and stuff at 3 years old. With him, I've just been much more relaxed because I felt that that's the better approach. Like, we can start a little bit later. We don't have to just be butting heads immediately. I want to wrap this up because I know this is getting chatty. In this sharing, I just hope that maybe you could find a resource that you enjoy. I did this same thing with math curricula about 2 years ago, where I shared all the things that we've tried and where we ended up. And I got a lot of good feedback of that. It's just nice to hear somebody's experience. And so that's what I hope this is for you. I'll link that math video if you're interested. that was a lot. That was a lot of resources. If you're still here, way to stick around. I've hesitated to share this journey in reading, mostly because I do feel lost at times. And I also feel unsure because I'm not an expert. I'm just a mom, and I'm just trying to help my kids do their best. And so when I come on here, I don't want it to come off as I know what I'm doing, because I don't. And it's been a growing process, but in that process I've learned, and I hope sharing the things that I've learned with you can encourage you. I pray that you can maybe not feel that lonely feeling I was feeling. When I think about this as a whole, I'm really grateful for all of my children, of course, and just the growth that has happened in homeschooling. You know, even with my children that picked up reading super fast, you know, I'm challenged with them in other ways that I'm not challenged with another child. So just being able to experience that with them, to see their growth, to help them in their growth, and to learn alongside them in the process, and also just increasing my own education, has just been a real privilege and a real gift. Yeah, maybe I can start sharing about this more, digging deep into something as we go, but for now I think this will be good.